Hello, everyone. Welcome in for a special live edition of this Astro Tarot forecast for the first week of September 2025. If you are new here, it says it's connecting. Should I wait? Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone and anyone that wants to watch this video live or later. This is your Astro Tarot forecast for the beginning of September. The first week is September, but we're going to get a little preview for the month ahead as well. And if you're new here, I'm Michelle Shea Walker. I am a spiritual advisor, an intuitive coach, a tarot reader, a Reiki healer, an Akashic Records reader. I'm a Jill of all trades when it comes to the metaphysical, and I am giving you your glass half full perspective on the week ahead. So I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that this is recording my audio, because I did want to use a little more sound efficient microphone, and I don't know how to sound check on this live video because it's my first live Substack. So cross your fingers for me, because you're in the future watching this, or you're on the other end watching this. I don't currently have anyone live that can tell me if you can hear me. So, welcome. Someone's here. If you cannot hear me, please let me know. Can I see a chat here? Maybe there's not a chat. But welcome into the Tarot Forecast for the week of September. We are going to be diving into an overall view of the month of September, as well as our weekly tarot forecast for a day-by-day play of the first week. So if you are new here, or if you're a paid subscriber, or if you tipped your order this week, stick around until the end. If you're new here, what happens at the end is I do a personalized reading for someone who is a paid supporter. And because this is a redo of a recording that I did in full yesterday that didn't upload and was lost to the internet gods, I already know who won. And we're already using all the cards that I pulled. So I saved everything from yesterday. And we're just going to trust that whatever interpretation comes through today is going to be more accurate and more resonant for someone. And that's why the other one didn't work out. So I kind of know what I'm going to say. I know who the winner is. I know what the readings look like. But I'm going to try and stay open to new messages, as well as remember the vital points that I expressed on the last reading. So thank you for joining, whether you're here for the live or for the replay. And we'll dive into a general view of September, because as I mentioned in last month's transition into a Virgo season, this is very much back to school energy. So we're definitely having this feeling of being in a place where we're learning our lessons, and we're really making sure that we've learned the lessons from our past. And that is coming through in the form of tests and reviews and reevaluations. And especially with lots of planets retrograde, we're getting a lot of life reviews on different areas of our life. As always, if you do know your rising sign or your ascendant, and you can figure out the houses in your chart, which we'll talk a little bit more about that later, it's going to be really helpful to figure out what areas of your life are going to be affected by the transits that we're talking about through September. But regardless, I'll give you an overview for the general population. So first thing I want to talk about in regards to September is that we are entering into eclipse season. And eclipse season means that we are in a place where things get a little funky because we're examining the shadows. We're pulling things that have been in the darkness into our perspective, and we're letting those things come up to be reevaluated, sometimes healed, sometimes integrated. And it's a great time period. You come out of eclipse season a more healed, complete, and ready to move forward person, but it can get uncomfortable because the moon is very connected to our emotions. So when the moon is dealing with a lot of darkness and shadow, it really hits deep at our core. So I want you to honor your emotions for the next several weeks. And I also want you to be really mindful, both with eclipse season and with Virgo season, to be really careful to separate work and play. and to be really structured with your work time versus leisure time, because there is an element in the energy for this month that feels like it could lean into a more workaholic tendency, where especially if you don't have a structured 9 to 5, or if your job doesn't respect the structured 9 to 5 and you do a lot of stuff in off hours, you could find that you're just working nonstop. And you could get to the end of the month feeling really burnt out and realize that you didn't actually take any time to fully unplug or shut down whatever it is your work style is and enjoy the moment and do something for just you. So make sure that you're not just driving forward towards the mighty dollar this month, but also know that it's a work hard, play hard energy. So you do want to make sure that you are really throwing yourself into work when you're actually working so that you can enjoy your leisure time that much more and you're not thinking of all the stuff that you didn't get done. So create that division, create some good structure in your life, especially if, like me, you're like an entrepreneur or you make your own schedule. Really make sure that you're not kind of blending things together and maybe like watching a YouTube video in the middle of trying to get something done and then working until 1 o'clock in the morning to finish that thing. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I've never experienced something like that. But if that is the case, definitely be mindful of those habits during Virgo season. So the other thing that's happening in September is we have the final planet of this sort of like conglomeration trio that has to do with a lot of global stage effects and change and combustiveness that's going retrograde. So we have Pluto in Aquarius, we have Neptune in Aries, and we have Uranus in Gemini. And those three planets all already have ties in history to different conflicts: the American Revolution, the French Revolution, the American Civil War, the Cold War, all very combustible energy. I think one World War One or two is connected to one of those. And that's already coming forward. We're seeing that in our life. There's a lot of sort of bringing things to the surface to be dealt with, which is what's happening during retrogrades and during eclipse season, but also during this Pluto and Aquarius timeline where we are revolutionizing things. We're recognizing what's not working for the greater good, and we're pushing back at entities that are not supporting that energy. So that is definitely occurring already. But there's also a connection to these particular planets being retrograde that really connects to those points in history. And Pluto is already retrograde, Uranus is already retrograde, or no, and Neptune is already retrograde. And then this Friday, Uranus goes retrograde. So the thing about retrogrades is it's always making sure we're getting something right. We're doing our checks and balances. We are making sure that we are aware of anything that we might have missed or any values that we need to reevaluate, any structures or systems that we need to sort of tweak and redo. And that is ultimately, no matter what's going retrograde, that's what we're doing. We're checking things out, we're reviewing things, we're editing. And when these particular planets in these particular signs are going retrograde, there are big edits and retweaking of systems that are going on. So know that that is also going to be over all of September. So we're doing macro and micro things. And remember, my viewpoint is that in your micro, your real life, your personal life is always rippling out into the macro. So even if you don't think that what you're doing within your personal relationships is helping on the global stage, on an energetic level, it is. It's creating that ripple. It's creating a cause and effect. It's creating an example that, whether you believe it or not, is affecting the energy around you. So if you see something on the global stage that you're feeling discontented by, ask yourself how you can affect that in your day-to-day life and let it ripple outward. And maybe it ripples outward in just the energy, or maybe you start to integrating this lesson in your day-to-day life and you realize that now you can go ahead and do other things that ripple out into the world. Like maybe you fix something in your personal life and you're like, oh, I would like to teach other people how to do this, or I would like to volunteer to do this. And it will affect your community and then grow from there. That is September's overview. So as we dive into the cards, We start with Monday, September 1st, the day that this is being broadcast live and reposted later. And it is Saturn moving back into Pisces. So Saturn is currently retrograde. We've already been Saturn in Pisces for quite some time until I think the end of May. So we've experienced this energy before, but because Saturn is retrograde, it's moving back through the signs, and we get a second chance to really make sure that we've crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's and done all the things that we need to do to learn the lesson that Saturn and Pisces was trying to teach us. Saturn is a very lesson-based planet. I like to think of it as like the strict school mom or like a nun with a ruler that's like gonna wrap you on your knuckles if you're not learning your lessons. So it's not so much that it's a bad energy. It's still like this energy of like a caring teacher, but also a very strict and no nonsense teacher. So when Saturn is affecting your life, it feels like you can't mess around anymore. You've really got to like put your nose to the grindstone, and you've really got to make sure that you're doing the work. So Saturn moving back into Pisces means that it's going to specifically affect the area of your chart where Pisces resides. So again, this is where we get into the place that if you don't know your rising sign, this is not going to be relevant to you. But if you do know your rising sign, which is also called the ascendant in some calculators or charts, you can then figure out what I like to do, which is the whole sign house system. The houses, don't get overwhelmed by this terminology. Houses are just kind of like the categorizations of the different areas of your life. So if we think of the sky as being divided into 12 different sections, those sections all rule different areas of your personal life based on your rising sign. And as the planets move through those different signs, those different houses, it affects that area of your life. So it's really helpful, even if you don't know a lot about astrology, to be familiar at least a little bit with your houses. And the best way to do this, in my opinion, again, there are different ways to calculate your houses, so this won't be effective for every sort of app or anything like that you use. But I really like the whole sign method, which is also what the Chani app uses. It's not what CoStar uses, so it'll be different than your CoStar. It could be different from your CoStar. But you start with your rising sign, your ascendant, and then count that as house one. So whatever zodiac sign is your rising sign, that is number one. And then if you look at the zodiac signs as they move around the calendar year, you can then just count from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And again, this is the calendar. So I'm an Aquarius rising. Aquarius, and then in the calendar year next comes Pisces. So Aquarius is my house 1, Pisces is my house 2. So for me, this Saturn into Pisces is affecting my second house. And then you can just do a quick Google to figure out what that house is ruling. That's, for me, if you're Aquarius rising, it's our finances. So it's a shortcut to translate these grander astrological conversations to feel how it's affecting you personally. And anytime you watch an astrologer online that's breaking down like what a specific planetary movement's going to do for each of the signs, they're actually talking about your rising sign. So you really, if you do know your exact birth time and you can calculate with any sort of online calculator, I like astrocharts.com. You can find out your rising sign, and then you can find out your houses, and then you can kind of do these translations for yourself, and you can know what area of your life everything's affecting. So with that in mind, me keeping a short look at my microphone because I don't want this to die on me. Saturn into Pisces is reviewing the lesson in Pisces, whatever that affects in your chart. If you're not someone that knows your rising sign, we can talk about that as a Pisces energy of your life. So Pisces is your dreams, your tendency to go into fantasy, your daydreams about relationships and romantic connections and creativity and intuition. So if you're not figuring out the houses, that's a good way to also translate this energy. We are reevaluating our dream life, our daydreams, and our tendency to maybe not put action behind our dreams. So make sure that you're putting action behind your dreams as Pisces and Saturn comes back into Pisces during the next several weeks. So that starts today. It happened 3:06 a.m. this morning. So it's already an energy that is affecting you. And the card that goes with that is the Four of Cups. Now, I'm trying my best to remember because I done this reading again yesterday, put all the cards back in the deck. I pulled them back out so that I still have the same cards. I want to say that this was reversed. And the way that I was translating all of the reverse cards whenever I did the reading yesterday was that it's an internal thing. This basically means that as Saturn's moving into Pisces, we want to really look at what you've done right rather than what you've done wrong. Because whenever we are reviewing and reflecting on the lessons that we've learned, we can get caught up in sort of beating ourselves up on what went wrong. And ultimately, the whole point is that you are looking on Monday at these lessons that you've learned and integrating the things that you can pull forward to do things right in the future. So don't think of what's going wrong in the past with these Saturn and Pisces lessons. Look at what you can pull from those lessons to do things right moving forward. And that's basically what the Four of Cups is always talking about. Don't look at what you're discontented with. Look at what the universe is giving you. Look at the gift of the situation. And because it's internal, it's going on more within our mind than within the external world. But that's great because we have control over that. So Monday, with Saturn moving back into Pisces and the Four of Cups reversed, you want to make sure that you're reviewing the lessons that Saturn and Pisces taught you up until the end of May and really integrating those lessons moving forward so that you know for sure that you're going to pass the final whenever this planet officially moves out of Pisces for good. So that is Monday, September 1st. Tuesday, September 2nd, we have Mercury moving into Virgo. So Mercury is the planet of communication, transportation, technology, but basically the way that we communicate. And it's moving into Virgo, which is a very structured and detail-oriented sign. So it's also very no nonsense. The card that's coming in with this is the Two of Pentacles. So this is really an energy. The message that I'm ultimately getting from this card and the message that I got yesterday when I recorded this full reading and it didn't save is that you want to be practicing the three gates of speech when it comes to your communication, especially on Tuesday, but even moving forward because Mercury's in Virgo for a few weeks. You're going to have things to say. You're going to have opinions. But the three gates of speech, I always like to speak to because they're really helpful just to kind of double check that you want to say something to someone. And those three gates are, is this honest? Is this kind? Is this necessary? And so basically, if you're in an interaction with someone and you have an opinion that you want to share, you want to ask yourself those three questions. And ideally, it passes all three questions and you can say it without any hesitation. If it's just like two of those, or if it's just like one of those, you want to kind of reevaluate if it's the right thing to say, if you even need to say it, or if you need to say it, but you need to say it later. It may not be the right timing. So like it can be honest and kind, and that's a beautiful thing to share. But if it's not necessary, it might be not be the right moment to share it with that person. So honest and kind and not necessary basically means that it's not urgent. So it's not saying like, don't say something that's honest and kind, but like evaluate when it's more necessary to say it. If it's kind and necessary, but not honest, that's a lie. So why would you say it? And if it's necessary and honest, but not kind, you also might want to reevaluate or at least rephrase it so that it feels more kind. So that's what's going on Tuesday with this balancing act and the Two of Pentacles and Mercury and Virgo. We're making sure that we're checking our communication and delivering things in the best possible modality and timing for them to be accurately received from those around us. It almost feels a little like a Mercury retrograde energy, in which case we always want to be really careful with the way that we communicate with others because we can be easily misunderstood. And I can tell you that yesterday when I was recording this full video, I kept getting tongue-tied and tripping over my words. So there is something about this sort of moving into Mercury and Virgo energy that is giving us a little bit of a hiccup with our speech and our communication. So be aware of that. It's not Mercury retrograde, but I want you to kind of treat it as if you would a Mercury retrograde where you're just extra careful with your communication styles. Moving into Wednesday. Hello, Sonia. Welcome. We have Mercury square Uranus. So Mercury square Uranus is when the planet of communication that just moved into Virgo on Tuesday is kind of a hard aspect to Uranus, the planet of change. So I don't feel like this is an energy that's really going to allow us to tell people what to do. It's an energy of show don't tell. And I definitely get that from the card of the day, which is the Six of Wands. And the Six of Wands can be an energy of being in a place of visibility. This could be on a grand scale, like maybe you're visible online or you have a very, very visible position at work and people are looking up to you or looking to you for advice or an example. Or it could be on a smaller scale, like maybe you're a parent and you are a role model for a small child, or maybe you're a teacher and you're a role model for a small child, or maybe you're an aunt and you're a role model for a small child. So it doesn't have to be children, but like this is basically saying someone or many people are now looking to you as an example for something. And with Mercury square Uranus, it feels like this isn't so much a teaching energy and what you're telling them to do. It's a example energy, and you are living your life to the best ability, and you're creating an influence on them by showing them how good life can be doing the things that you do. So again, leading by example rather than with your words is what's going on Wednesday. And don't underestimate your ability to influence others, because this definitely feels like, again, we think of this as like, oh, this person's like up on a horse and they're leading people into battle and they're like a leadership role. And that could be for you, that could resonate, but it could be something really small that you don't even realize. It could even be that like someone that you don't even know is watching your social media or something that you're doing at work and really admiring you and modeling themselves after you. And they may not even say it. You may not even know that this person exists, but this is very much an energy of like, be the example that you want to see in the world. If you wanted to create shift in the world and you wanted the entire world to behave a certain way, are you behaving that way in the small moments in your day-to-day life? Because you want to be the example, both in a physical presence and on an energetic level to help shift the global stage. Because as we say, the micro affects the macro, even when we can't see the direct correlation between those two things. So that's Wednesday's energy. Thursday's energy is a couple different movements with the planets, both involving Jupiter. So Jupiter is the planet of luck and expansion. I like expansion as a better word for it than luck, because it doesn't always feel lucky or pleasant. I mean, sometimes it does. Sometimes it's really good luck and you just feel like you won the lottery, and that's a great energy for Jupiter. But Jupiter also is about just expanding your ability to do whatever it is that you do, to call in the abundance that you want, to hold space for the relationships that you desire. And it's having both a favorable aspect and a not so favorable aspect with some planets on Thursday. So the first one happening in the morning hours is Jupiter is trine the North Node. And the North Node is our sort of like true north in life. Ooh, this guy is blinking. Did I mute myself? The North Node. So Jupiter is trine the North Node. And the North Node is our true north in life, our sort of North Star that we're directing our path towards. And that means that it's a good aspect. The trines are lucky, they're supportive. So both of these signs, basically all that means is both of these planets are in water signs. And so they're in a similar energy. So you could find that you have a little boost of luck of your direction towards whatever your life goal or path is, because Jupiter is in a supportive energy to the North Node. In the global collective, because we all have our own natal north nodes in a specific sign, but in the global collective, the north node is currently in, I believe, Cancer. Oh no, Pisces. Jupiter's in Cancer. The North Node is currently in Pisces. So again, we have another thing happening with Pisces this week. We have Saturn moving back into Pisces on Monday. We have Jupiter expanding the North Node in Pisces on Thursday. So if you don't know your natal North Node to figure out what your particular true North is, and P.S., I talk about all of these in my star reading. So if you ever want a one-on-one breakdown of your chart, that's available. But that's another story for another time. So Jupiter trine the North Node is basically saying that, like, even if you don't know what your specific North Node is, the areas that Pisces is affecting in your life are going to be lucky and expansive on Thursday. So again, if you do know the house that Pisces is in, feel free to kind of do some checks and balances and let yourself expand in that area. But if you don't, intuition, creativity, relationships, emotions, those are all things that Pisces is related to. So it could just be that you're allowing for an expansion in those areas of your life as the expansive planet lines up with our true north in Pisces. The other thing that's happening in the evening hours, also dealing with Jupiter, is Mars is square Jupiter. So that's a less supportive energy. Basically, they're kind of fighting against one another. So Mars is our planet of passion, which can also be about fighting, but it can be about your sensuality or the passions that drive you in life. And then again, Jupiter is about expansion, but it feels like maybe there's a little bit of a conflict in the way that these two are coming together, in that your passion is not making you feel expansive in this particular moment. This feels very much like an energy of when you're an artist or creative and you have really big ideas and you know what you want something to look, you know what you want something to look like in your mind, but your skills haven't caught up for it. And it's a really expansive and passionate time, but it's also really frustrating because you have to kind of just get over that hump and like let yourself be not quite as good as you want to be and still create the thing. And in the process of creating the thing, get better at it. So use that as a metaphor for something that's happening in the evening hours on Thursday, probably bleeding over a little bit into Friday. And the card that's coming in on Thursday is the Five of Swords reversed. So this is basically telling us that there's something that we might be fighting for that may not be worth the fight, that it's time to put down the sword. And I get that that could just be, again, like fighting for perfection. We're really working on being okay with the process of things, even if it's not perfect, and still showing up and creating or being passionate about whatever we're passionate about, even when things feel hard. So that's the energy that's happening here. Friday, we have one of those big things that I was talking about at the beginning for the month of September that's happening, which is Uranus going retrograde. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we're talking about some big planets moving into signs that they've been in for really big historical events. And when they go retrograde, we're really making sure that we're doing our reviews in the areas of, in particular, change when it comes to Uranus. Getting a little worse. So I'm going to take a little sip of water from my giant water bottle. So Uranus retrograde, first of all, affects you personally in whatever area of your life Gemini falls in your chart. So if you know your houses, check what house Gemini is, because that's going to be where you're kind of reviewing some change. But on a global grand scale, Gemini is a planet of communication and the way that we communicate in regards to change. And it is connected to a couple different global conflicts and throughout history. I believe one of them is World War I or World War II. I can't remember which one in this moment. I think the other one was the Cold War. So these were areas of time where we're trying to create change and communication is starting to break down. And that can happen with Uranus and Gemini in general. But when Uranus goes retrograde in Gemini, we're really talking about refining our ability to communicate and ask for what we want in a way that's not going to create a combustible energy on the other side. So I want to review back to our three gates of speech. Even when it comes to grand global events, is this honest? Is this kind? Is this necessary? Because if it's not, maybe it's not the right time, the right moment, or the right thing to say. That is that energy. But the good news is we have the full reversed. So we are moving into a new timeline. The Fool is a reset of energy, a reset of the cycle. We've learned some lessons. We're moving into a new era. When it's reversed, I mean, there's several ways to read it, but I'm reading it as really making sure that we're not getting caught up in the fear and trepidation of a new era, and let yourself go wild in your imagination on the optimism and the possibilities, because there's both. And I think the phrase that came through yesterday when I was doing this reading is fear and curiosity. have a very similar energy in your body. There's just a slight tweak from one side of the spectrum to the other side of the spectrum. So, if whether it be on a personal level in regards to change or on a global level in regards to change, if you're feeling fearful, first of all, don't feed that monster. It doesn't need any more food. But if you're feeling fearful about change in your life, just figure out how to tweak that energy into a space of curiosity. Because fear is of the unknown and curiosity is of the unknown. So how can you get curious about the potential of this change and what it could create in your life? And it's basically just this shift from glass half empty to glass half full. If you have the glass half empty, you're going to be fearful of that change because you're going to assume the worst. If you see the glass half full, plug for this channel, you are going to see the possibilities. So how can you see the possibilities that lie ahead rather than the fear? Get curious. Moving into Saturday, we have the moon into Pisces, which I haven't talked about the moon the rest of the week because there's been a lot of other stuff going on. But this is relevant because the moon in Pisces is going to be happening bleeding into our eclipse that's happening the next morning. Moon in Pisces is a very, again, more Pisces energy. We have 3 things happening in Pisces this week. So it's a very watery, emotional, intuitive energy. It can get caught up in fantasy. I'm a Pisces moon natally, like my birth chart is a Pisces moon. So that's how I am at my core. But even so, if you are a Pisces moon, you might feel the Pisces moon effects a little bit more. Your emotions are going to be closer to the surface. That's true anytime the moon is in your moon sign. But even if you're not a Pisces moon, you might feel that your emotions are closer to the surface. And you also might find that you are getting caught up more in the fantasy of a thing rather than the action of a thing. So be mindful of that. And then the energy of the card that's coming through is the Eight of Swords. And the Eight of Swords is telling us that even if we feel trapped in a certain situation, we have more power than we think to move forward. So I feel like this is a great energy for Moon in Pisces because Moon in Pisces does get caught up in daydreams. But when you're feeling trapped in a situation, you almost need to be a little delusional about your daydreams for the future so you get the courage to jump out of the situation that you're in. So this could be that you're feeling trapped in a job. It could be feeling trapped in a location. It could be feeling trapped in a relationship. But whatever it is, it's a story that you're telling yourself. And this person in this card has told themselves a story because they can't see that they are trapped, that they are tied up in ropes and they are surrounded by swords. But if they take the blindfold off, they'll notice that the ropes aren't that tight and they can wiggle out of them. And the swords actually have this beautiful path right down the center that they can walk out of. And that is your message for Moon into Pisces on Saturday. Let your delusional fantasies bring you the courage to leave this situation that you're not actually trapped in. There are very few times in life that we're actually going to be unable to change our circumstance. Sometimes it's really hard. I mean, most of the time change is hard. We're talking about change with Uranus retrograde and we're talking about change here. Change is hard because it's the unknown. But can you let that little push of momentum get you to the other side of that change, of that transformation, of that movement forward so that you can experience something better because you deserve better than the situation you've been putting up with. This is even intensified as we move from Saturday into Sunday because on Sunday in the afternoon hours, we have a Pisces full moon and an eclipse. So the Pisces full moon gets an eclipse. And I really want to make sure that we're talking about the beauty of this energy, but also with an asterisk warning. First of all, eclipses are not great manifestation times. However, we don't normally manifest on a full moon anyway. And when Pisces was in the new moon 6 months ago, it was not an eclipse. So you might still find that the manifestations you were trying to call in, I think around end of February 27th, I want to believe, is when that moon was new moon in Pisces. Let me just hold for a little page flip. Yes, February 27th, whatever you were trying to call into your life or wish for during that time period, you might find that it is starting to come true during Pisces full moon. However, anytime it's eclipse season, both when we are warned away from manifesting on an eclipse new moon and also with this full moon, it's kind of an energy of be careful what you wish for because you just might get it. And that is echoed in our cards because we got a dual card for Sunday, and it's the Ten of Pentacles, which is basically wishes come true in regards to your financial security, your home, your family life, your generational healing. But it's also paired with the Hierophant, which is it's sort of the Saturn card of the tarot in that it is sort of a harsh schoolmarm. It's like, you better learn the lessons. You better be really careful and really clear about what you're wishing for because it'll come true and maybe you didn't actually want it. So the thing that I want to say in particular about this Ten of Pentacles energy in regards to the Pisces full moon and in regards to this Hierophant energy is that you want to really evaluate, especially what you were thinking about around the 27th of February and what you were really trying to call into your life there. You want to evaluate I've got a hair in my eye, excuse me. If your wishes are coming from a place of, there we go, of your actual desires, or if it's coming from a place of wishing for something that you've been told that you should want, or that you thought you wanted years ago and you haven't reevaluated that desire in so many years that you don't realize that you don't want it. So the best example I have for this is I am not someone that has marriage high on my priority list of things to do in this lifetime. I love love, I love romance, I love partnership, but marriage is not necessarily important on my agenda. I respect that it's totally valuable for other people. I'm not trying to devalue it. It's not something that I could take it or leave it. I'm not saying I'll never get married, but if I never get married, I know I'll be okay and content and happy. That's not a life goal I'm trying to check off my list. If you would have checked with me in my early 20s, I'm so thankful that no one at that time period in my life ever proposed because I would have ended up in a situation I didn't want to be in. Because I was just going based on what society and romantic comedies and everything in your life tells you that that is the goal. You want to find love and you want to get married and you want to grow old together. And in my maturity, in my adulthood, going through my own relationships and breakups, I've discovered that you can have those things. You can have love and you can have people to grow old with without actually involving legal contracts. Again, my personal desires and opinions. The point being, that's very much this energy of Ten of Pentacles paired with the Hierophant. It's as if I need to go back in time and tell my 20-year-old self, hey, are you sure that this is what you want? Like, why do you want this? So that's what I want you to do on Sunday. I want you to look at the goals that you've been trying to manifest, whether it be when the moon was in Pisces and new in February, or the things you're trying to call into your life in regards to whatever house Pisces is in your chart. And you want to make sure that you are asking yourself why. Why do I want this thing? And honestly, it's a great tactic for manifestation because if you can find out why you want something, you can find out the emotion behind what you're trying to call in. And if you embody that emotion, you're more likely to call that thing into your life. But also, you find the stuff that you don't actually want. Like you're like, oh, why do I want this? Is it because my parents wanted it for me? Is it because my role model had that in their life and I thought that I needed it? It's a great time for that evaluation. Um, the other thing that's happening is the North Node is trine Lilith before our full moon eclipse happens. So it's the wee morning hours. I don't want to go too far on that because I feel like the eclipse is the big moment of the day, but also know that there's a supportive energy again regarding your true north, your North Node. And Lilith, your dark feminine side, the denied part of yourself. So it also could be a day that's actually perfect, honestly, for the example that I just gave. Because North Node trine Lilith energy is very much, I mean, it doesn't have to be this exact scenario, but in regards to the example that I just give, Lilith is very counterculture or like what's not expected of you. And sometimes if your true north is to not get married or to not need to get married as mine is, Lilith is the one that's able to go counter to what is expected of you and be okay with that. Be okay with disappointing people. Be okay with going against the grain. So that's a really supportive energy for the energy of this eclipse as well. Okay, so that is our week. That is our overview of September. I do want to go into the personal reading. As I mentioned at the beginning, I had already done this drawing. I'd already done this reading for the paid subscriber that won this. But before I get to that, I wanted to do a little reward for those that are watching live. So I'm going to do a single card pull. Can I see who's here? Is there a way to message? Sonia, I know you're here. I see that there might be one other person watching. So if one other person is watching other than Sonia on this live video, if you're able to message and drop something in that little chat bar below, just give me your name. And I'll do a single card reading for at least Sonia, but also another person if someone else wants to drop their name in the chat. And if not, we'll do this one. And then we'll also do the one that I pulled yesterday. My message for anyone watching now or later is that the personalized reading can also be collective readings in some ways. So you might find that if you feel called to stick around and listen to the reading that I'm about to do, it's because that person's going through some sort of similar lesson that you're going to find something from their message that's valuable to you. Don't disregard it just because it's not your personal reading. The rest of this reading wasn't specifically to you, it was to the collective. So just because we've narrowed it down to one person doesn't mean that it's not going to still resonate. So let me figure out what to do with this microphone while I shuffle the cards. I may just put it down. Sonia, I'm going to pull you a single card. If you do have something specific you want it to focus on, and you can drop something in the chat, feel free to drop in the chat, just like an area of life, not something really in depth, but like love, career, family. Feel free to drop that there. I hope I can see them. Again, this is my first live, so I'm still trying to figure this out. But if not, we'll just do a general reading and we'll see what comes up. So let me put the microphone down and we'll shuffle the cards. Okay. We got one that flew out right away. We got one that flew out right away. I don't know if that came over the microphone, but the one card that flew out, I don't see anything in the chat. I'm sorry if you were able to use the chat. I just don't know how to see it. But the card that came out is the King of Swords. So this is being very mindful and unapologetic on your mental boundaries. This feels like I'm getting an energy of like protect your mental health. And I think that this is an energy that you're already establishing. You're probably working with therapist or coach or on your own to really make sure that you're not letting others infringe upon your thoughts too much. The King of Swords is already creating sort of an area of expertise in that area. But I feel like you're really coming into that energy at this moment, especially during this week. So King of Swords is definitely an energy of making sure that you are very mindful of what you put into your mind. This feels very much an energy of like really be mindful of what you're consuming online, really be mindful of what you're reading in your spare time, what you're watching in your spare time. It's an energy of like your mind is like this. I'm seeing it as like this like I started saying I'm gonna see it as a temple, and then the temple started to have like this one of those big pools out in front of it. So it feels like you're like a sacred pool and your mind is a sacred pool, and you want to make sure that you're not letting too much tainted, unsacred, unholy water into your mind. A little bit is okay sometimes because it's a big pool and it can be diluted, but just make sure that you're not having a constant stream of information, thoughts, ideas that aren't resonating with who you are and aren't making you feel good about the future. So this feels really relevant for like things that are happening on the global stage. If you're being too caught up in sort of the news cycles or things that are happening on social media, other people's opinions, especially, we really want to clear that space so that you can hear that quiet voice within you that's telling you what your opinion and your truth is, because swords are all about truth. So yeah, be unapologetic about having that boundary for yourself and cutting out the information from your life, even if it's just temporary, that's not resonating with your truth. Okay. So, moving into the actual reading winner from yesterday's reading, I already did the little randomized drawing. I always want to thank all of my subscribers. Can I do it all from memory? Thank you, Sonia, for being a paid subscriber. Thank you, Amanda, Caitlin, Holly, Tracy, Francis, and Jane for being paid subscribers. And those were the people that were on the wheel on yesterday's drawing. And Jane, you are the one that won. So I'm going to pull the cards out that came out yesterday because they were really good. And I want to try and replicate my reactions to these cards because I was so excited for you. So let me spread these out and I will go through one by one and tell you your past, present, future. And again, if you feel called to stick around, there's a reason for that. You share a thread of energy that's resonate with whatever Jane's going to have in this message. So starting off, Jane, your past card was the Magician. And the Magician card is always a reminder that you have everything that you need, all in your back pocket. So this is a message that whatever you're getting into or whatever you just recently started an interest in, because this is the recent past, there's a feeling of like, don't let feeling unprepared or uninformed or unqualified hold you back because you're actually not unprepared, something or unqualified, whatever I just said. The magician is like, oh, you actually know more than you think you do. You're more qualified than you think you are. So do not let your limiting beliefs, your limiting thoughts about yourself, your fear get in the way of taking the leap into something unknown, which really is resonate for the rest of the week's cards as well. This is very much an energy of like wanting to go into a certain career or apply for a certain job that you think that you need to have a master's degree in whatever the topic is. And in actuality, your life experience has been the master's degree. So do not disregard the non-school learning that you have achieved in whatever area of your life you're currently curious about, because curious feels like the word du jour this week. This feels like maybe you've been interested in taking a class or again, applying for a job or maybe interacting with a certain group of people. And your fear is telling you that you are not qualified. And the magician is telling you, you are. You're way more qualified than you think you are, but you need to cross over that threshold to find that out. So that's the recent past. You're qualified. Your life lessons have taught you whatever you need to know. And when you have the courage to jump over that hurdle and do this scary thing that you feel unqualified for, your present card is coming in with the Two of Cups. And the Two of Cups is a beautiful meeting of like-minded souls. So this could be, it's a soulmate across the board. It could be a romantic soulmate. It could be a platonic soulmate. It could be a career soulmate. But something about this act of courage that knowing you're qualified is going to help you do is going to bring you in contact with either a single person or an entire community or just a situation that totally resonates with your soul on a way you couldn't even have imagined. So this needs to be your motivation. It doesn't need to be the passion for whatever you want to learn or do needs to be the motivation, but this can be your extra incentive to get over the fear of doing the thing that you don't feel ready to do because you're going to meet your people or your person. That's what this is saying. And I'm so excited for you for that because that's such an immediate reward for following through on the message of the magician. And then in the future, it flipped over and I screamed in the actual original reading. You have the Nine of Cups. And the Nine of Cups is your wishes fulfilled card. It's also a make-a-wish card. So what this tells me is that you're actually going to really strengthen your manifestation powers by doing this act of courage, by recognizing that you're more qualified than you think you are, taking the leap into the unknown or the thing that you don't feel like you're ready for. You're going to meet this community or find this soul resonates with something there. And it's going to be your immediate results of manifesting, of being like, oh, wait, I had the courage to move forward towards something I desired, and I immediately got rewarded for that. Let's do more of that. Let's do that every single day of our life and make all of our wishes come true. This is going to propel you forward with a beautiful momentum to really make all your dreams come true. So like, let that keep going. Like, let that first achievement, that first boost of energy of like soul alignment that you get for overcoming your fear, keep moving you forward. And like, it feels like a really prime energy, especially during Virgo season, to get this energy moving. So take the class, take the trip, talk to that person, apply for the job, whatever it is, do it now, because you want to utilize the rest of Virgo season with the energy that you create with the success of that first thing. And then I looked underneath the deck and I was, again, overcome with emotion in the original reading. I'm sorry I can't replicate the whole thing. But when I peeked underneath the deck to see what the underlying circumstance is, it's the Chariot, which, speaking of momentum, this is you being your own driver, your own momentum forward. So this is a very fate-guided energy because it's a major arcana, and you have two major arcanas in this reading. But it's also a very self-empowered energy because you are in the driver's seat. You have some spiritual help in the form of these little sphinxes along the way. So if you need a push forward or a pull forward, they're there to help you, but you're the one that's directing your path. So like, what do you want? What are you wishing for? What does your dream life look like? And get in the driver's seat and move forward towards it, even when you don't feel ready, because you actually are way more prepared than you think you are. You're more prepared than most. It's kind of that feeling of like, have the confidence of a mediocre white man. There's an energy of like, have the confidence of someone that's not qualified but thinks they are, because you're way more qualified than that person is. You're more qualified than the most confident candidate of whatever it is that you're trying to achieve. You just need to have the confidence. And I think by going through this progress of making the action of going for the thing that you don't feel ready for, you're going to realize how ready you are. And that's going to give you the confidence to keep moving forward. That is our reading for September, for the first week of September. So thank you again for all the paid subscribers. If you watched until this point and you want to be a part of these personalized reading drawings that I normally do at the end, but I had to do yesterday. But when I normally do a randomized reading, it's from all of the names of people that have either tipped me $1 or more throughout the week or become a paid subscriber, which is only $5 a month. So you're really getting more bang for your buck that way. You can also do an annual subscription for $50. So you're saving $10 for that one. And I want to mention that the wheels are turning on some additional paid subscriber content that I'm hoping is going to be out later this month. So for those of you that are paid subscribers, that is coming. You're going to get exclusive to that. And for those that aren't paid subscribers, it's a really good month to become a paid subscriber, not just to get this personalized reading drawing at the end of every week, but also to get the goodies that are coming and the exclusives that you don't want to miss. So thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your support, whether it be monetary or visual and interaction wise. And I hope you have a beautiful, amazing start to this transformational September.